Okay, so a sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was announced back in 2019 in Nintendo's E3 Direct. Since this game was announced, I've constantly been thinking about what I truly want to see in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, I've already made a video about this exact topic, but that video was posted in 2019, and it's really bad. And so this video is basically just a remake of that video, but my opinions on this topic have changed. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to be calling the sequel to Breath of the Wild 2, as it's just quicker to say. And with all that said, let's talk about 5 things that I want to see in Breath of the Wild 2. Alright, so Breath of the Wild had 120 shrines, and these shrines were basically these small dungeons that were scattered throughout Hyrule. These shrines generally took around 5 minutes or so to complete, and nearly all of them were not very challenging. Plus, the fact that the interior of all 120 shrines looked exactly the same made it so that shrines grew from being these unique, quick dungeons to just being annoying. So I hope that Breath of the Wild 2 has shrines but alters them. One of my ideas on how the shrine system could be improved is making it so that they don't all look the exact same from the inside. The interior of these shrines in Breath of the Wild is made up of these greyish floors and walls that just aren't very appealing. And so seeing this exact same interior 120 times kind of sucks. So in Breath of the Wild 2, Nintendo could maybe make it so that these shrines reflect the biome of whatever region the shrine is located in. So for example, shrines located in the Gerudo Desert would be desert themed, and shrines that are in the Elden region would have lava flowing through them. Another one of my ideas on how shrines could be improved is varying the length of the shrines. In Breath of the Wild, I'd say 9 out of 10 shrines take around 5 minutes to complete. And while I love these short and sweet shrines in Breath of the Wild as they're good, simple fun, I'd love to see some longer and more challenging shrines that take around 20 minutes to complete in Breath of the Wild 2. I just think having shrines in Breath of the Wild 2 that are more varied in length would make shrines less predictable, which would in turn make them more fun. In Breath of the Wild, the Zoros, who are the weird fish people, give you the Zora armor set, so that you are able to swim up waterfalls. And yes, it is awesome that you can use this suit to swim up water. But for some reason, no one at Nintendo thought that wearing the Zora armor should give you the ability to swim underwater. And this was a huge missed opportunity. So in Breath of the Wild 2, I want Sidon to hand us the Zora armor in the exact same way that he gave it to us in Breath of the Wild. But this time, wearing the Zora armor will let us swim underwater. Being able to explore all the flooded ruins and Lake Hylia from an underwater perspective would just be so awesome. And maybe there could even be Zora villages that are under the water that you could buy special weapons and items from. And how about this? Raiding underwater Lizalfo's hideouts. Like, come on, you can't tell me that all of this wouldn't be incredible. Breath of the Wild's story is definitely not the game's strong point. Now don't get me wrong, the fact that Breath of the Wild is such an open game and actually has a storyline that is kind of good is pretty impressive, but it could definitely be improved, and so in Breath of the Wild 2, I want to see a more detailed storyline. There are so many things that Breath of the Wild 2's story could tell, like what was going on with Mipha and Link, why does Zelda hate her dad, how was Zelda fighting Calamity Ganon for 100 years, why does the crazy flower lady care so much about flowers? There is just so much going on with all the characters in Breath of the Wild that I think Breath of the Wild 2 just needs to dive into. Like, I don't care if it's Kilton or Yonobo. Nintendo, please, just give us more backstory on all the incredible characters in Hyrule. The boss fights in Breath of the Wild are, in my opinion, the worst part of the game. From the very start, Breath of the Wild's story is all about how Link got defeated by Calamity Ganon, and how Calamity Ganon had basically torn Hyrule to bits. So you're thinking that the final boss fight against Calamity Ganon is going to be really, really hard, and that you'll need the best of swords and hundreds of arrows. But the boss fight ends up being the opposite of that. Like, 11-year-old me was able to beat Calamity Ganon in the 3rd or 4th try, and I sucked at video games. So I can't imagine how easy it would have been for people that weren't a dumb little kid. Also, I feel like it's worth mentioning that Breath of the Wild's other boss fights weren't too hard either. I remember having a little bit of trouble with Thunderblack Ganon, but other than that, all of the other boss fights were piss easy. So if Nintendo could make it so that the boss fights in Breath of the Wild 2 are actually challenging, that would be fantastic. Ruins of villages that were torn apart by Calamity Ganon are scattered all throughout Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. And while we do get to see what the villages looked like before they were ruined in Age of Calamity didn't let you explore them in the way that I wanted to explore them. So in Breath of the Wild 2, I want to see all of the ruins remade. The Colosseum in Breath of the Wild is a place that isn't often spoken about, and I don't know why, as this place is really cool. It's basically just a broken Colosseum that looks really cool, but I reckon it would be even cooler if we got to see what it looked like in Breath of the Wild 2 when it would be all fixed up. Castle Town is probably the place that Calamity Ganon fucked up the most. And so I want to see what this town looks like when it's all rebuilt. Maybe Castle Town could be a village compiled of all the different races that are found in Hyrule. The idea of having a somewhat futuristic castle town that is home to Hylians, Zoras, and Gerudos in Breath of the Wild 2 is just so fascinating to me. So in Breath of the Wild 2, I want to get a look at and explore all the rebuilt ruins and see how they've changed when compared to what they look like in Age of Calamity. And those are the 5 things that I want to see in Breath of the Wild 2. Let me know in the comments what you want to see in Breath of the Wild 2, and if you enjoyed the video, why not leave a like? And if you want to see more Nintendo content, why not subscribe to the channel? And yeah, thank you for watching.